I didn't feel great about meeting him in person. It wasn't that he'd done anything wrong. Our conversations through the app had been amazing. He made me laugh like no one else had in a long time, and he seemed genuinely kind. But still, meeting someone for the first time can be unsettling. There's always that nagging voice in the back of your mind, whispering, "What if?" When he suggested dinner at his place for Valentine's Day, I hesitated. It felt too intimate for a first date, too soon to be alone in his house. But he reassured me, his voice warm and persuasive. "I want to make something special for you. You deserve more than just another restaurant meal." His charm worked, and I told myself to stop overthinking. He seemed thoughtful, genuine. What could go wrong? The night of the date, I pulled up to his house just after sunset. The neighborhood was quiet. Too quiet. Rows of darkened houses lined the street, their windows dark and uninviting. I parked a few houses away, a small attempt to ease my nerves, and walked toward his place. The air was unnervingly still, the sound of my heels against the pavement echoing like a drum beat. His house was the last one on the street, shadowed by an overgrown tree in the front yard. Only one window was lit, casting a faint, flickering glow that reminded me of a candle about to go out. Something felt wrong. My stomach churned, but I told myself I was being ridiculous. "Stop it," I thought. "You're just nervous." He opened the door before I could knock, as though he'd been standing there waiting. His smile was broad and warm, but his eyes, there was something about his eyes that made my breath catch. They darted over me, quick and calculating, before landing on my bag. "Why don't you leave your phone in your purse?" he said casually, his tone light but somehow insistent. "Just enjoy the evening." The request threw me off. It felt odd, controlling even, but I didn't want to appear rude or mistrustful. Hesitating only a moment, I slipped my phone into my bag and forced a smile. Inside, the house was dimly lit, with candles scattered around the dining table and soft music playing in the background. The air smelled faintly of something floral, almost cloying, like it was trying too hard to be comforting. It should have felt romantic, but instead, it felt curated, like a stage. "Dinner's almost ready," he said, motioning toward the table. "Make yourself comfortable." Before sitting, I asked to use the bathroom. My nerves were spiraling, and I needed a moment to collect myself. His gaze lingered for just a beat too long before he nodded. "Second door on the left," he said, his voice steady. The hallway was darker than the rest of the house, the faint hum of the music fading as I walked away. I slipped into the bathroom and locked the door behind me, my heart racing. I leaned against it, trying to steady my breathing. The silence pressed against me, thick and oppressive. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. And then I heard it, his voice, low, muffled, but unmistakably him. "Yeah, everything's ready. She's here now." My chest tightened. What's ready? My mind scrambled for answers, panic blooming in my chest. I pressed my ear to the door, trying to catch more, but his voice stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was worse, thick with implication. I needed to leave now. I looked around the small bathroom, my eyes landing on the tiny window above the sink. It was barely big enough for me to fit through, but it was my only option. My fingers fumbled with the latch, trembling so badly I almost couldn't grip it. The window squeaked as I pushed it open, the sound making me freeze. I strained my ears, praying I hadn't been heard. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, moving down the hall. Panic surged through me. I scrambled onto the sink, my knees slipping against the porcelain as I tried to push myself up. The window frame bit into my sides as I forced myself through, the rough edges scraping my skin. My heart thundered in my ears as I wriggled halfway out, and then I felt it. Hands grabbing my ankle, pulling me back. "No, no, no!" I screamed, kicking wildly, my voice breaking as I thrashed against his grip. He was strong, too strong, and the edge of the window dug painfully into my ribs as he yanked me down. My other foot connected with something, his face, his chest, I didn't know, and he cursed, loosening his hold just enough for me to slip free. I fell hard onto the grass outside, the impact jarring but adrenaline-fueled. I stumbled to my feet, my vision swimming as I took off into the night. Behind me, I heard him shouting, the sound of the back door slamming open. He was chasing me. My lungs burned as I sprinted down the street, the cold night air cutting into me like knives. My shoes were slowing me down, so I kicked them off, the asphalt scraping my bare feet as I ran. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My breath came in ragged gasps, each one feeling like it might be my last. Somehow, I made it to my car. My fingers fumbled with the keys, my shaking hands nearly dropping them as I unlocked the door and threw myself inside. As I locked the doors and started the engine, I saw him, standing in the middle of the street, illuminated by the faint glow of my headlights. His face was twisted in fury, and in his hand, a knife. I slammed on the gas, tearing down the street as fast as I could. I didn't stop until I was miles away, pulling into a gas station parking lot to call the police. Later, when the officers arrived and told me what they found in his house, my stomach turned. The dining room wasn't just set for dinner, it was staged. Hidden in the next room were tools, restraints, and syringes filled with something they couldn't immediately identify. Whatever he had planned, it wasn't dinner. As I sat in the back of the squad car, shaking, I couldn't stop replaying the moment he grabbed my ankle. If I hadn't fought back, if I hadn't run, I wouldn't have made it out of that house alive. He thought the night was going to be perfect. His girlfriend had been unusually secretive about her Valentine's Day plans, dropping hints but refusing to say what she had in store. "Just be at my place at 7, she'd said with a playful smirk. "Trust me, you'll love it." When he pulled up to her house that evening, a nervous excitement coursed through him. His mind spun with possibilities. A candlelit dinner she cooked, some elaborate romantic gesture. Whatever it was, he was sure it would be memorable. The house was dark when he arrived, except for the faint, flickering glow spilling out from the living room window. He stepped inside and immediately noticed the candles. They were carefully arranged in a trail along the floor, leading toward her bedroom. The soft flicker of light made the house feel quiet, intimate. His heart raced as he followed the path. "Babe," he called out, his voice echoing softly through the still air. There was no response, just the faint scent of lavender wafting from the candles. He reached her bedroom door and pushed it open, the corners of his mouth lifting into a smile, until he saw her. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking as quiet sobs racked her body. The sight stopped him in his tracks. "Hey," he said, stepping into the room cautiously. "What's going on? Are you okay?" Her head snapped up, and he froze. Her eyes, red and swollen, bore into him with a mix of heartbreak and fury. She didn't answer at first. Instead, she reached beside her, picked up his phone from the bed, and held it out like it was something vile. Her hands were trembling. "I thought I was okay," she finally said, her voice raw, "until I saw these." His stomach dropped. "What? What are you talking about?" Her hands shook as she swiped through the screen. The texts, from her, "You know exactly what I'm talking about." The color drained from his face. "Wait, hold on, this is a misunderstanding." "Oh, don't even try," she snapped, her voice rising. "I've read every word, I know everything." Before he could say another word, she grabbed her phone from the bed, her movements sharp, deliberate. At first, he thought she was just pulling up more evidence. But when she held it up, he saw the red light blinking at the top of the screen. "Wait, are you live streaming this?" His heart started pounding. "Are you serious?" Her lips curled into a cold smile. "You think you can sneak around, lie to me, and humiliate me, and I'm just supposed to take it? No. Everyone's going to see who you really are." He took a step back, panic clawing at his chest as the comments started rolling in. Messages flashed across the screen, the faceless audience fueling her rage. What's going on? What did he do? Expose him, girl." "Can we please talk about this in private?" His voice cracked as he raised his hands, palms up, trying to placate her. "I swear, this isn't what you think." "Private?" she spat, her voice dripping with venom. "You didn't care about privacy when you were texting her, did you?" The next few minutes were a chaotic blur. Her voice rose to a near scream as she read the texts aloud, the damning evidence spilling out for the world to hear. Every time he tried to explain, she cut him off with another message, another screenshot. His face burned with shame, his heart pounding as the live stream audience egged her on. "What a jerk, drag him, sis. Cheaters deserve this." He could feel the walls closing in, the weight of the humiliation crushing him. This wasn't just between the two of them anymore. It was public, a spectacle for strangers, friends, maybe even his family. His mind raced with panic, but there was nothing he could do to stop it. Finally, she tossed his phone onto the bed and pointed to the door, her voice hoarse and trembling. "We're done. Get out. Please," he begged one last time, his voice barely audible. "Just let me explain. Get out." The finality in her tone made his stomach twist. He stood there for a moment, paralyzed, before he turned and left. The sound of her sobs followed him down the hall, echoing in his ears as he stepped outside into the cold night air. His hands shook as he fumbled with his car keys, his mind reeling. Before he could even start the car, his phone buzzed relentlessly in his pocket. Notifications, messages, probably people from the live stream. He couldn't bring himself to look. As he drove away, the reality of what had just happened hit him like a freight train. The relationship wasn't just over. It had been obliterated, torn apart in the most public, humiliating way possible. What was supposed to be a romantic evening had turned into his worst nightmare, and there was no coming back from it. I'd been looking forward to the date all week. We'd matched online, and from the first conversation, everything just clicked. You know how rare that is? To find someone who makes you laugh, who seems genuinely interested in what you have to say. She felt different. Funny, smart, real. I caught myself smiling at my phone every time we talked, imagining what it'd be like to meet her in person. And for the first time in a long time, I thought, maybe this could go somewhere. She suggested this cozy little Italian place for dinner. Said it was her favorite, one of those hidden gems with checkered tablecloths and candles in jars. It sounded perfect. I even got there a little early, nervous in that good way, like a teenager on prom night. When she walked in, I swear, she was even more stunning in person. Her smile was warm, inviting, the kind of smile that makes you feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be. We hit it off right away, just like I'd hoped. Conversation was easy, natural. We laughed about stupid things, TV shows we both hated, the time I tried to bake cookies and nearly set my kitchen on fire. She shared little pieces of herself too, like how she got into true crime documentaries, or how she's afraid of elevators but will ride them if there's music playing. She made me feel comfortable, like I could tell her anything. By the time the plates were cleared, I felt hopeful in a way I hadn't felt in years. She excused herself to the bathroom, flashing me that quick smile again. "Be right back," she said, grabbing her purse. "Sure," I said, leaning back in my chair, already picturing dessert or maybe a long walk after dinner. I was thinking about how I'd tell her I'd like to see her again. I mean, why not? The night had gone so well. But then 5 minutes passed, then 10. I glanced at the bathroom door, figuring maybe she'd gotten caught fixing her makeup or something. Another 5 minutes ticked by, and my stomach started to twist. I tried to play it cool, sipping my water and nodding at the waiter when he came by. "She'll be back soon," I said, pretending I wasn't starting to feel off. 20 minutes, I sent her a text. "Hey, everything okay?" Nothing. By 30 minutes, I wasn't just embarrassed. I was anxious. The restaurant was quieter now, a few tables emptying out, and I could feel the pitying looks from the waitstaff. They didn't say anything, but I knew what they were thinking. Poor guy got stood up. I ordered another drink, mostly to look like I wasn't just sitting there, abandoned. And then finally, my phone buzzed. Relief washed over me until I read the message. "Sorry, but you've been part of an experiment for my podcast." I stared at the screen, rereading it over and over, hoping I'd misunderstood, but I hadn't. My stomach dropped. The whole night, every laugh, every smile, every shared story, it wasn't real. She'd set me up, she'd used me. I felt sick. I couldn't even move at first. My mind raced, replaying every moment of the evening, trying to figure out how I'd missed it. She'd seemed so genuine, so kind. And now, sitting there alone, I realized I was nothing more than content for her podcast. Later, when I got home, I made the mistake of looking it up. Her show popped up right away. Modern Dating Fails, Real Stories of Awkward, Cringe, and Catastrophe. The description alone made me feel like throwing up. I scrolled through the episodes, seeing titles like The Guy Who Brought His Mom to the Date and Fashion Crimes on First Dates. She'd been doing this to people for months, tricking them into these fake dates, secretly recording their conversations and then tearing them apart for her audience. My chest tightened as I imagined what she might say about me. Had she been recording the whole time? Would she mock the way I laughed, or how I'd opened up about my family? Would people comment on the way I looked, or worse, say I deserved it for being naive? I deleted the dating app that night. I couldn't even look at it without feeling sick. It wasn't just the humiliation that hurt, though there was plenty of that. It was how deeply it cut to realize that someone I'd been genuinely excited about, someone I thought might actually be different, had seen me as nothing more than a punchline. I don't think I'll ever forget that night. Not the dinner, not the message, not the hollow feeling in my chest when I realized she'd been playing me the whole time. It wasn't just a bad date, it was a betrayal. And I don't know when or if I'll ever trust someone like that again.